Welcome back inside the home theater. I'm back after a rather long hiatus from the YouTube channel. I've been pretty distracted over the last few months as I have a move to a new location in process. We are renovating the home that this theater is in that I'm coming to you from. But we will be a lot more regular going forward with episodes and home theater equipment setups, installation, calibrations, new releases of new product. And starting with this episode, we're going to delve into multi-channel music, something I should have been doing for a long, long time based on all my background and my experience in my room. But we'll get to that in a moment. If you're new to the channel, let me take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Bill Murphy. I come from a long background of music as I spent several decades in broadcasting as an FM music radio disc jockey starting back in 1982, almost as far back as the Johnny Fever days. Yeah, I was that guy. And I got out of that sort of semi-retired from broadcasting, terrestrial broadcasting, back in 2021 in the tail end of the pandemic when our industry completely changed and I decided that it was no longer for me. At the same time, I was transitioning into the home theater business as I first got on board with the Zapiti folks down here in South Florida in a marketing capacity, and it later led to a general manager position for distribution for Let's Get Physical, the company that was distributing Zapiti, which later became Arvolution. We also worked with Magnetar and Revon Blu-ray players, Bridgie cables, and most recently Mag Theatron speakers imported from Ukraine. And as I come to you now, I do believe I still have the only full 7.1.4 setup of speakers and amps from Mag Theatron in this demo room here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You're welcome to come visit anytime you're here. Just hit me up because you owe it to yourself to experience this real cinema sounding setup in my home theater. It's just a 3-seater, 13 by 19, but you can really get the idea. But what I'm going to start doing now, and something I should have been doing a long time ago, is, I don't know if reviewing is the right word, more like presenting and bringing to your attention some of the best Dolby Atmos and even older 5.1 music recordings, because I do feel that music is underappreciated in the home theater world. And all these CEDIA and tech shows that I go to, it's all the same clips in all the demo rooms of the movies that we've seen a million times, and just comparing the brilliance of this screen against that one, and the emphasis is way, way, way on video rather than audio. Well, the audio is emphasized, but not music per se. And there's a lot of magic going on in multi-channel music that you may or may not be aware of. And I'm here to bring some of it to your attention. Now, my first experiences with multi-channel music, 5.1 in particular, wasn't very life-changing at all. It was in the early 2000s. I had my Dolby Pro Logic Yamaha receiver, PlayStation 4, and I got the Toto 4 5.1 SACD. I played it through that system with my little tiny speakers that were hanging from the corner of my ceiling above my couch, my Infinity speakers, my small clip subwoofer, and I don't know that I actually had it set up correctly or used the right settings on the receiver. My experience with that was sort of meh. That was kind of cool, but didn't really give me the full effect of what it was. And I was not able to really revisit it again or had any interest in revisiting it again until almost 15 years later. And around 2019, when I started working with Zapiti, Raphael Tabutan, who some of you might know very well, he's a musician and a drummer. He started turning me on to all this multi-channel music. In fact, ripping with Make MKV raw files. He knew I had a Pro Tools studio. I had 4 outputs on my Apollo Twin X interface. So he would send me the 6-channel wave files right off of these discs. I would import them into Pro Tools. I'd use the 2 extra outputs on my interface to build a 4.0 system. I added 2 subwoofers to it and basically just had a phantom center channel. And that was life-changing for me. The first couple of recordings I heard like that really made me go, wow, this is a whole new world for me. Years later, when I interviewed Alan Parsons on the Bill Murphy Show, a podcast I started in 2010, in about 2020 or 21, I interviewed Alan Parsons. I told him about that system I was using, and he said he didn't have any problem with that at all because that guy hardly ever uses the center channel when mixing music in 5.1 and thought that the center channel was, and I quote him, an unnecessary appendage. And on that note, about your home theater system. Now, I have, in addition to the Mag Theatron speakers and amps, I'm playing most of my material with either the Magnetar Blu-ray player or the Arvolution Player 1.8K. I have a bunch of media stored in the Arvolution NAS storage. You can get that from Murphonics Home Theater, by the way. So hit me up if you'd like to get some of that stuff. And I spent months with my Anthem AVM70, my processor, building profiles. You have the ability to build 4 profiles on an Anthem. And I know everyone has probably been chasing their tail because I did experience that myself for a long time, of setting up specific profiles for movies and specific profiles for music. And what I discovered in that process is that what you really should be doing is finding the most optimal setting for your system and your room and your speakers. The speaker distances and levels of all the different speakers is really the only thing you're adjusting in those profiles. And the conclusion I've come to is that I've settled on one profile, and that's really just the sound of my system sounding its best. Now, every time I listen to a different album or watch a different movie for that matter, it's a different experience. And the difference is now, with my system sitting in a place where it works its best, is just the differences in what the directors and producers and the people that mastered these works were doing and what they had in mind. There are some directors that don't want that much activity in the ceiling and in the rear, and then there's some that do. The same goes for music. There are very safe 5.1 and Dolby Atmos mixes that basically just put reverb tails in the rear and try to make that stereo image wider and sort of wrap around you in a bigger way. Nothing wrong with that, but then there are producers and engineers that mix Dolby Atmos music in a way that just takes you into another place. It transports you. You're able to close your eyes, hear music and sounds coming from all different directions, and still blended in the same manner that they were in the 2-track Stereo Master. And one of these guys that is a master at this is Steven Wilson, and we'll get into him in detail. What prompted me to do this was there's a disc and an album that was just recently released in Dolby Atmos that I felt as soon as I heard it, it needs to be experienced by everyone I know. Everybody I know that appreciates good sound and good music, whether they've heard this album or not, needs to sit down and experience, in particular, this one title track, which is 13 minutes long. What am I talking about? All right, we'll keep this. We'll end the suspense right now. We're talking about Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. When I received this, the first thing I did was a friend of mine came by to listen to it. We had been waiting for this for a while. And when we listened to the title track, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, which is like 13 minutes long in complete darkness at my reference volume, we couldn't even speak to each other afterwards for a couple of minutes. We couldn't really find the words to describe what we had just heard. It is literally like being on a roller coaster for 13 minutes. It goes in every direction you would want. It's got all the bass you would want to hear. The vocals are so beautifully produced and placed that you just can't resist it. And it's just something that you really, really need to hear. And part of the reason why it sounds so good is that it was originally produced by Trevor Horn, the guy that did the Seal records and also did 90125. Is that what it is? From Yes back in 1983. Kind of revolutionary with his stabs and sounds and effects going on in there. So there's a lot of that going on in this. This is just something that you need to really, really experience. Now, I'll go through a few other releases that came out in 2025. And again, I'm more or less kind of bringing them to your attention rather than reviewing them because it's a matter of taste. And so I don't feel it very productive to kind of rank these as any being better than the other. Some of the highlights of stuff that was released in 2025, one of my all-time favorite albums from my childhood, Elton John's Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. Mixed in Dolby Atmos by Greg Penny, the same guy that did the 5.1 mix back in the early 2000s. And it is just done what I didn't think could be done. It improved on the 5.1 and made it even bigger, more dynamic. It is got, for instance, Someone Saved My Life Tonight, the epic piece that it is. It starts out very quiet, and by the time it ends, it has grown. If you look at the waveform of even just the stereo waveform of Someone Saved My Life Tonight, it grows the entire time. And you truly feel how much dynamics were in there that we were unable to hear on compact disc or vinyl for all those years. And I feel like some of these releases, not only are they bigger and more spacious because of the Dolby Atmos mix, but they're also in much higher resolution than the originals. And you're able to come very close to what the engineers heard when they made that. And just to expand upon what I was talking about with leaving your system at the same setting and just letting all of the different producers and directors' visions come to you and experience all those differences. When the movie engineers are mixing audio in Dolby Atmos and the music guys, they're basically doing the same thing. They are directing that sound toward the main listening position. And in their case, just the seat that they're sitting at their production desk. So if you have a decent profile that really showcases your system and has the right levels, basically just test tones should be all you need to get levels set so that they're even in your main listening position. The same thing is done with the music guys. So if there's a music Atmos mixing engineer who doesn't like to use the rear channels as much, you're just going to have to sit through that. I mean, of course, you could turn up the rear channels just for that album, and then the next thing you know, you're building profiles for each of your albums. My advice is to just stick with your system, let your system do what it does best, and give it the disc that has the production on there the way the engineer intended for it to sound. And then you can make your comparisons from that point on. Some of the highlights of music that were released in 2025 that stand out to me. The Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy from Elton John, as I mentioned earlier. Again, Someone Saved My Life Tonight. And again, these records, these albums in multi-channel, you don't necessarily have to be familiar with them. In fact, I think it's a pretty exciting thing to hear a piece of music for the first time in Dolby Atmos. Because if you're listening to something that you're intimately familiar with in stereo for years, you may listen to the Dolby Atmos and sort of just be making comparisons from what it used to sound like to what it sounds like now the whole time, which in a way is distracting you from the listening experience. In my case, the Frankie Goes to Hollywood album, I was on the radio when Relax came out, and of course we played the crap out of that. I do believe I played 2 Tribes on the radio for a week or so. There was one more single from that album released in the States. I'm not remembering what it was, but all 3 of those charted very, very high in the UK. I was not at all familiar with the title track, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, so I let it hit me like a ton of bricks, not knowing what was coming next, not knowing when it was going to end or how long it lasted. And I just went along for the ride. And I highly, highly recommend this for you if you have a home theater system, even in mid-tier to high tier. You're going to go places and your system is going to show off like you probably didn't even know it could do. In addition to the Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, for Christmas, I was given as a gift from Raphael. Thanks, Raphael. The Wish You Were Here 50th Anniversary Dolby Atmos mix from Pink Floyd. Now, Pink Floyd has been releasing all of their stuff in multi-channel over the years, almost excessively. It's a band that you can practically find all of their albums in 5.1, and they're slowly but surely releasing all of them in Dolby Atmos. One particularly cool treat on the Wish You Were Here 50th anniversary is that it also includes the original 1971 4.0 quad mix, which was on those quadraphonic albums on vinyl, and also the 8 tracks, which were actually 4 2-track sections that, pardon me, they were 4.0 quad mixes on 8-track that you would only, like Sansui, I believe, was one of the brands that was making those for cars anyway, that you could listen to in quad. Anyway, that original master now is on the Wish You Were Here 50th anniversary. And I do understand that there's some Blu-ray players that aren't playing that correctly. In fact, when I first tried to play it after ripping it to my Arvolution NAS, it wouldn't play properly through the Arvolution Player 1. It was only giving me stereo, and in fact, it was only the front 2 channels in stereo. The Magnetar UDP 800, which I have in my rack, does play the 4.0 mix of Wish You Were Here on the 50th anniversary disc perfectly. As a side note for you Pink Floyd fans, the Reverberation box set that came out, I guess it was 2016 or 17 or so, which included the 4.0 mix of Echoes, just one song from the Metal album on that disc, still does not play properly for me, even on my Magnetar UDP 800. If somebody wants to chime in on that, it sounds to me like the rear channels are reversed. Like perhaps there was a UK version of 4.0 that was, left front is 1, right front is 2, right rear 3, and left rear 4. I do believe that's what's happening on there, because at some point in that song, the entire mix of the song rotates around the room or revolves around your room, and it doesn't sound right even on my Magnetar UDP 800. So if somebody wants to chime in and find out how that can be played properly, let me know. I have not tried to switch my rear channels to see if that fixes it. The reason I know it's wrong is because I originally had a ripped copy of that track in 4.0 that I played through my old Pro Tools system that I built out of a 4.0 and had a Phantom Center channel. So I had the tracks. I could actually see the waveforms and which ones were supposed to go where. So I had that one set up correctly. So when it was supposed to revolve around me, it did. But I have not been able to replicate that experience with my Anthem AVM 70 and Magnetar UDP 800 Blu-ray player. So that's the Wish You Were Here 50, just a couple of the highlights of things that have come out over the last few months, and in particular in 2025. Also, Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair. A while back, I did have the 5.1 version of that. I still do, which is on DVD audio, and I do believe it's presented in DTS 5.1. Now, Steven Wilson has taken that one and made a Dolby Atmos mix of it. And the cool treat that comes along with this record, and also is on the Frankie Goes to Hollywood album, is that he's included the entire album in instrumental in Dolby Atmos. So if you're very familiar with those Tears for Fears songs on Songs from the Big Chair, you can listen to it instrumentally in Dolby Atmos. And in that experience, you really find discovering all the layers that are built into the songs, how the second verse has 2 more instruments that pop in that weren't there in the first verse, or the second chorus has extra backup vocals in there that you didn't notice before, or extra backup synthesizers and percussion that you didn't even know was on the record. So I highly recommend those. This is something that I think should be more inclusive with the CEDIA and the tech summits and all the trade shows where these systems are shown off. I really do think music is underappreciated and should be experienced more. As I get more of these discs, I will share them with you. I've got some notable, what's the word I'm looking for? Honorable mentions that weren't necessarily released in 2025, but still stand out as big demo performers for me. The SACD of Toto 4 in 5.1, done by Elliot Shiner, just a complete work of art. Of course, Gaucho from Steely Dan, Also done, I believe, by Elliot Shiner. Yes, that's I'm right about that. And of course, all the Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson records that Steven Wilson mixed in 5.1 and Dolby Surround. I would say that that guy is right up there with, some of the all-time greats as far as multi-channel music. He really gets it. He knows when to get crazy with ceiling speakers and rear speakers and when not to. And at no point does anything that he ever produces sound cheesy or gimmicky. One other release from 2025 that I failed to mention earlier was another one I received for Christmas was Alan Parsons' iRobot. Now, along with Eye in the Sky, which won Best Immersive Album the year that it came out, Pyramid was just released earlier in 2025, I believe, or that may have been at the end of 24. And now iRobot is out. And as you could well imagine, the opening track and all the synthesizer sounds going on. It's just an album that was really, really made for Dolby Atmos. So these are standout discs that I highly recommend that you listen to. I need to share a little bit of the inspiration behind doing this video. The night that we listened to the Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, I actually listened the second time. I think I've been through this compact disc maybe 3 or 4 times since I received it a couple of weeks ago. And one of those times that I listened to it, as soon as I was done, I went to take a break and started, scrolling through YouTube. And I stumbled upon Mike's Life in Surround channel, and he was holding up a copy of this. And I saw the title of the video that said he was doing a review on Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. I purposely did not watch that because I did not want to be influenced by anything he said about it. But now that I've recorded this, I will go back and watch your video, Mike, and I hope that in a future episode I could have Mike on and we can discuss music in surround from a couple of different perspectives, from his music listening perspective, from my gear perspective, and I can help guide you if you're really wanting to experience multi-channel music in a way that completely envelops you and makes the experience totally immersive. I can help guide you into getting the right equipment that would fit your budget and setting up your room the way it should be set up so that these albums can be appreciated at their optimum level. So be sure to visit Murphonicshometheater.com if you're interested in any of the gear that I'm using for this stuff. Like and subscribe this channel. Share it with your friends that are building home theaters, some that already have them. And let's all share this. Please comment below on any particular multi-channel 5.1 Dolby Atmos releases that you think I should be aware of, or some that I may not have mentioned in this episode. And let's all grow this community. One other thing that I've also been doing is we've started the, in conjunction with Obsessed Home Theater with Michael Stevens, we have started the South Florida Community Home Theater Group so that now eventually we can all sort of share our systems with each other. The goal is to get a community of folks that live close enough together to visit each other, to sort of do comparisons and visits and demos of their rooms. So be sure, if you're in South Florida, even if you're not in the area, just join the group anyway in case you are in the area and you can visit, and be sure to share your home theater setup, your favorite music to listen to in multi-channel, and some of your favorite movie scenes and movies that show off your systems as well. That's Obsessed Home Theater South Florida Community. Just look it up on Facebook with any of those words in your search and you should be able to find it. And we'll catch you next time on the next edition of Inside the Home Theater. Thanks for watching.